In 2024, a total of 25 executions were carried out across 9 states in the U.S. Here we are going to present to you each case, the date, and how it all happened. Kenneth Eugene Smith, January 25, 2024, Alabama. The first one to be executed in 2024 was Kenneth Eugene Smith. 58-year-old Kenneth Eugene Smith was convicted of the 1988 murder for hire of Elizabeth Dorleen Sennett, the wife of a local pastor. Smith and an accomplice brutally beat and stabbed Mrs. Sennett to death at her home after being paid by her husband in a plot to collect insurance money. Smith's first 1989 conviction and death sentence were overturned, but in a 1996 retrial, a jury recommended life. Smith spent over 3 decades on Alabama's death row awaiting execution. 8 hours before his execution, Smith ate a final meal of steak, hash browns, and eggs. This meal was served at Holman Correctional Facility and was the last food he consumed. Strapped to the gurney, wearing a special full-face mask for the new execution method, Smith delivered defiant final words. "Tonight, Alabama causes humanity to take a step backwards. Thank you for supporting me. Love all of you," he declared just before the procedure began. These were Smith's final public words, spoken to witnesses and loved ones, indicating both criticism of his execution and gratitude to supporters. A historic first use of nitrogen gas for execution in the United States. Alabama pioneered this untested method after difficulties with lethal injections. Smith was pronounced dead at 8:25 p.m. after nitrogen gas was introduced into his breathing mask. Witnesses reported him breathing heavily and convulsing for several minutes before falling still. Despite controversy over the method, officials deemed the execution successful and humane, marking the first-ever nitrogen gas execution in the world. Ivan Kantu, February 28, 2024, Texas. 50 years old Ivan Kantu was executed for a double murder committed in November 2000. He was convicted of fatally shooting his cousin, James Mosqueda, and Mosqueda's fiancée, Amy Kitchen, at their home in Dallas. Prosecutors said Kantu killed the couple during a robbery, attempting to steal drugs and cash from his cousin, who was a known dealer. Kantu was sentenced to death in 2001. He maintained his innocence for over 2 decades on death row, claiming another drug dealer was the real killer. His case drew support from some jurors and activists due to recanted witness testimony, but all appeals and clemency efforts were ultimately denied. Kantu did not receive a custom final meal because in Texas, special last meal requests are not allowed. Ivan Kantu used his final statement to proclaim his innocence to the very end. Looking at the victim's family witnesses, he said, "I want you to know that I never killed James and Amy. If I knew who did, you would have been the first to know." He expressed doubt that his execution would bring the family closure and thanked those who supported his case. Kantu's voice remained firm as he insisted he was not the killer, urging the real perpetrator be found. Kantu was injected at 6:26 p.m. and pronounced dead at 6:47 p.m. in the Huntsville Penitentiary death chamber. This was Texas's first execution of 2024. Willie James Pi, March 20th, 2024, Georgia. Willie James Pi, 59, was put to death for the 1993 murder of his former girlfriend, Alicia Lynn Yarbrough, in Spalding County, Georgia. In July 1993, Pi abducted Yarbrough from her home. She was later found shot to death. Evidence showed Pi also raped her during the attack. He was convicted of malice murder in 1996 and sentenced to death. Pi spent nearly 28 years on death row. In the weeks before execution, his attorneys argued he had intellectual disability and inadequate representation at trial, but all appeals were denied. His execution was Georgia's first in over 4 years. Pi requested a hearty final meal of chicken sandwiches and cheeseburgers. Prison officials reported that he ordered multiple chicken sandwiches and double cheeseburgers. She was served on the day of his execution. Willie Pi declined to make any final statement in the execution chamber. When given the opportunity to speak, he said nothing. Instead, he accepted a final prayer with a prison chaplain. A week later, a recording of a statement Pi made earlier in the day was released. In it, he thanked the prison staff for treating him kindly and expressed remorse for his crimes. During that recording, Pi said, "I ate like a dog on death watch. I slept good. I'm remorseful for everything that happened," showing regret even though he spoke no audible last words at the moment of execution. Pi was executed at 11:03 p.m. at Georgia Diagnostic Prison in Jackson. He was pronounced dead shortly thereafter. This marked Georgia's resumption of executions after a long hiatus, with Pi being the first executed in the state since 2020. Michael Dwayne Smith, April 4th, 2024, Oklahoma. Michael Dwayne Smith, 41, was executed for a 2002 double murder in Oklahoma City. He was convicted of killing Janet Moore and Sheriff Babu Puluru during separate armed robberies in April 2002. Smith shot Ms. Moore in her apartment as she dressed for work. Days later, he robbed a convenience store where Mr. Puluru was working and shot him, then set the young man's body on fire. He admitted to the murders during a police interrogation, according to prosecutors. In 2006, a jury convicted Smith of both murders and sentenced him to death. In a March 2024 clemency hearing, Smith suddenly claimed innocence. The pardon board denied relief. Smith declined to request a special last meal, asking for no particular food. Michael Smith kept his final words brief. When the execution team asked if he had anything to say, Smith replied casually, "Nah, I'm good." He offered no apology or statement, falling silent thereafter. Witnesses noted that as lethal drugs flowed, Smith showed no interest in speaking. He simply lay with eyes closed. His only other utterance was a quiet no when asked earlier about a final meal or statement. Oklahoma carried out Smith's execution at the state penitentiary in McAllister at 10 a.m. He was pronounced dead at 10:20 a.m. Smith was the first person executed by Oklahoma in 2024 and the 12th since the state resumed executions in 2021. Brian Dorsey, April 9th, 2024, Missouri. Brian Dorsey, 52, was put to death for the 2006 murders of his cousins Sarah Jo Bonney and her husband Ben Bonney in Jefferson City, Missouri. The couple had kindly taken Dorsey into their home to help him while he struggled with drug addiction, but Dorsey repaid their kindness with shocking violence. In August 2006, seeking money to pay a drug debt, Dorsey shot Ben and Sarah each once with a shotgun at their home. Afterwards, he desecrated Sarah's corpse, raping her after she was dead, while the couple's 4-year-old daughter slept in the next room. The child was unharmed, found the next morning after Dorsey fled. Dorsey was arrested and in 2008 was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. He spent 16 years on death row. Multiple correctional officers and even the victim's family members supported clemency for Dorsey due to his model behavior in prison and remorse, but the Missouri governor denied clemency. Dorsey chose an extravagant last meal. Favorite foods. He was served 2 double bacon cheeseburgers, 2 orders of chicken strips, 2 large orders of French fries, and a pizza loaded with sausage, mushrooms, and extra cheese as his final feast. In a lengthy final written statement provided just before his execution, Brian Dorsey expressed profound remorse. He directed an apology to the family of his victims. "I am truly, deeply, overwhelmingly sorry. Words cannot hold the just weight of my guilt and shame," he wrote. He stated that he never wanted to hurt anyone and still loved the family he destroyed. He also addressed his own family and friends, thanking them and saying he felt at peace. When the time came for last words in the chamber, Dorsey declined to speak further, letting his written apology stand as his final testament. Witnesses saw tears in his eyes as he lay on the gurney, having already said his goodbyes in writing. Dorsey was executed at the Eastern Reception, Diagnostic and Correctional Center in Bonne Terre, Missouri, and pronounced dead at 6:11 p.m. He was the first person executed in Missouri in 2024. The execution proceeded without visible complication. Dorsey appeared to lose consciousness within 5 minutes of the injection and was declared dead moments later. Jaime Ray Mills, May 30th, 2024, Alabama. Jaime Ray Mills was executed for the heinous murders of an elderly couple in Gwynn, Alabama in 2004. On June 24, 2004, Mills and his then-wife visited the home of Floyd Hill and Vera Hill under false pretenses. Mills then attacked the Hills in their shed with multiple weapons: a machete, a ball-peen hammer, and a tire iron, brutally bludgeoning and stabbing them to death. The couple's cash, purses, and prescription pain medications were stolen after the murders. Investigators later stopped Mills with the bloody weapons in his car. Mills was convicted in 2005 of capital murder for killing the Hills during a robbery, and he was sentenced to die. He maintained his innocence for years, alleging his wife lied at trial, but courts rejected his appeals. Mills requested a seafood platter for his last meal. Prison officials served him 3 large shrimp, 2 catfish fillets, 3 oysters, 3 onion rings, and 1 stuffed crab, along with a soft drink. Mills's final words were spoken in a calm voice. "I love my family. I love my brother and sister. I couldn't ask for more. Charlotte, you fought hard for me. I love y'all. Carry on." As the drugs were administered, Mills continued to give a thumbs-up to his weeping family members behind the glass. He mouthed, "I love you" to them as his spiritual advisor prayed over him. He remained focused on comforting his family until he lost consciousness. Mills was pronounced dead at 6:19 p.m. at the Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore, Alabama. This was carried out with the standard Alabama 3-drug sequence. The execution proceeded without known issues, and witnesses reported Mills appeared to pass smoothly after a brief prayer and final statement. David R. Hoer, June 11, 2024, Missouri. David Russell Hoer was executed for the 2009 double murder of Angela Gilpin and her husband, Rodney Gilpin, in Jefferson City, Missouri. Hoer had been Angela's lover, and when she broke off the affair and reconciled with her husband, Hoer reacted in a jealous rage. On September 28, 2009, he ambushed the Gilpins at Angela's apartment and shot both of them to death near the doorway. Angela had previously filed a protective order against Hoer, fearing his stalking and threats. After the murders, Hoer fled the state. He was caught in Oklahoma with an arsenal of 15 guns and hundreds of rounds of ammo in his car. In 2013, a Missouri jury convicted Hoer of Angela's murder. He spent 11 years on death row, all the while maintaining his innocence, claiming the evidence against him was circumstantial. Appeals failed, and clemency was denied by the governor, who noted Hoer showed no remorse. Hoer enjoyed a lavish final meal on the day of execution. Around 11 a.m., he was served a New York strip steak, Texas toast, a Dutch apple pie for dessert, and a bottle of orange juice and milk. This large lunch was Hoer's last meal, specially prepared to his request. In a final written statement released just before his execution, Hoer offered a chilling farewell to his loved ones and supporters. "I leave you all with love. Now I get to go to heaven. Don't cry for me," he said in his statement. Those words, imbued with Hoer's religious faith, were read out as his last message. Strapped to the gurney, Hoer then verbally said, "I love you all," to the witnesses. Missouri carried out Hoer's execution at 6:11 p.m. at the Bonne Terre prison. Hoer declined a offered life sentence plea deal years ago and thus faced execution. He was pronounced dead moments after the drug was administered. This was Missouri's second execution of the year. Romero Felix Gonzalez, June 26, 2024, Texas. Romero Gonzalez was executed for the kidnap, rape, and murder of Bridget Townsend in 2001. In January 2001, Gonzalez, who was only 18, then abducted Townsend, sexually assaulted her, and fatally shot her after she walked in on him stealing drugs at her boyfriend's home. The young woman's remains were hidden on a ranch in Medina County, Texas. Gonzalez was caught for an unrelated rape and kidnapping of another woman in 2002, for which he received a life sentence. While in prison, he confessed to Bridget's murder and led police to her remains. He was convicted of Bridget Townsend's murder in 2006 and sentenced to death. On death row, Gonzalez became deeply remorseful and active in faith-based programs. He even offered to donate a kidney to save a stranger's life in 2022. Ultimately, all legal avenues were exhausted by 2024. Texas forbids special last meal requests, so Gonzalez had no special meal. He ate the standard prison menu on his final day. Romero Gonzalez gave a remarkably long and heartfelt final statement, which he had hoped to make for years. Turning toward the victim's family, he spoke in a clear, steady voice. To the Townsend family, I'm sorry. I can't put into words the pain I've caused y'all, the hurt, what I took away that I cannot give back. I never stopped praying for all of you. I hope one day you will forgive me. I'm sorry. He apologized by name to Bridget's mother, Patricia, and a relative, David, asking forgiveness from each. Gonzalez also thanked his own family, friends, and even prison administrators, the opportunity to become responsible, to learn accountability and to make good during his time in prison. After finishing his lengthy apology and expressions of love, Gonzalez said, "Warden, I'm ready." Gonzalez was executed at the Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville. The injection began at 6:26 p.m., and he was pronounced dead at 6:50 p.m. This was Texas's second execution of 2024. Witnesses reported Gonzalez simply closed his eyes and went to sleep after giving his final statement, passing away without complication. Richard Dick Norman Rogem, Jr., June 27, 2024, Oklahoma. 66 years old, Richard Rogem, Jr. was executed for the 1984 kidnapping, rape, and murder of his 7-year-old former stepdaughter, Layla Jean Cummings, in June 1984. About 2 months after divorcing Layla's mother, Rogem abducted the little girl from her home. Layla's mutilated, partially clothed body was found in a field. She had been sexually assaulted and stabbed to death. Evidence indicated Rogem killed Layla in retaliation after the child told others he had molested her, which led to his divorce and imprisonment for parole violation. Prior to murdering Layla, Rogem had a history of sexual violence. In 1985, an Oklahoma jury convicted him of Layla's murder and sentenced him to die. Rogem spent nearly 40 years on death row, the state's longest-serving death row inmate by 2024. He maintained his innocence at a clemency hearing, pointing to DNA under the victim's fingernails not matching him, but clemency was denied. Rogem requested a Little Caesars pizza feast as his last meal. He was served 2 small double cheese, double pepperoni pizzas from Little Caesars, 2 cups of vanilla ice cream for dessert, and a bottle of Werner's ginger ale to drink. When asked if he had any final words, Rogem, already lying on the gurney with IV lines in his tattooed arm, simply said, "I don't. I've said my goodbyes." He offered no apology or further comment. After nearly 4 decades, he had long since made his peace with those close to him. As the execution commenced, Rogem appeared stoic and did not speak again. He reportedly closed his eyes and breathed evenly as the drugs flowed. Oklahoma officials administered midazolam, vecuronium bromide, and potassium chloride to Rogem at the state penitentiary in McAlester. He was declared dead at 10:16 a.m. on June 27, 2024. This was Oklahoma's second execution of 2024. Keith Edmund Gavin, July 18, 2024, Alabama. Keith Edmund Gavin was executed for the 1998 murder of a delivery driver during a robbery in Alabama. On March 6, 1998, Gavin ambushed William Clayton, Jr., a courier service driver, outside a bank in Center, Alabama. Clayton had just finished his delivery route and was withdrawing cash from an ATM to take his wife to dinner. Notably, at the time, Gavin was on parole from Illinois. He had served 17 years of a 34-year sentence for a previous murder in Chicago. Gavin was convicted in 1999 on 2 counts of capital murder and sentenced to death. He spent 25 years on death row. In 2020, a judge briefly overturned his death sentence due to ineffective counsel. Gavin, who had converted to Islam in prison, fought for religious accommodations. Alabama did agree to forego an autopsy on religious grounds, a rare concession. Gavin's last meal became a point of contention. He requested halal lamb to adhere to his Muslim faith, but the prison warden insisted any outside meal come from a local restaurant. Instead, his final meal consisted of snacks. Purchased a pint of butter pecan ice cream and had a can of Mountain Dew and a bag of peanut M&Ms from the vending machine. According to a witness, that assortment of junk food was all he ate before the execution, were directed toward his relatives watching. After that, he appeared to speak quietly in Arabic, praying under his breath. Witnesses saw him moving his lips in what looked like an Islamic prayer and raising his index finger in a sign of faith as his spiritual advisor stood beside the gurney. Alabama carried out Gavin's execution by chemical injection at Holman Prison, pronouncing him dead at 6:32 p.m. CDT. This was Alabama's third execution of 2024,